I did have a nerdish question before we jump into Action Comics.
Oh, let's
Are
do it.
you? I don't know that you're old enough. I think maybe. Did you see Alien in theater, or did you see it before you saw Aliens? Either way.
So here is what happened. My parents were very protective, and I did not see movies that were not G-rated until I was in high school and we moved to another state and I could hang out with people and watch movies at their house. The only movies I saw prior to that point that were PG were on TV, and
Like
that was
edited.
like, yeah, heavily edited. And so that was like the Star Wars movies and the Superman movies and like the Chipmunks movies. And that was kind of my experience with cinema until I got into high school. So when I got to high school in 1990, and then we moved here in 91, honestly, I didn't see Alien or Aliens until I saw them together years later at a friend's house. So I'm sorry that I can't answer.
Oh no, you're good. I didn't know if you did or didn't. We're going to be talking about on our next episode, which Gabe's taking a sabbatical, and I'm not really sure where Tim's at right now on the thing. I actually need to call him, but we're going to be talking about Alien, and because we haven't talked about it for a pop culture classic yet. But we were talking about the fact like we both strongly agree, as with Terminator, that Aliens and Terminator 2 retrospectively are better movies than their predecessors.
By far.
To me.
Yeah, agreed.
But that doesn't take away the fact from like Terminator and Alien being like hugely groundbreaking when they came out. You know, if that makes sense. Or if you saw them before you saw the other two movies. So I just thought it'd be interesting if you did have that perspective, but you know, that's all right.
Nah, wish I did. Seriously. There's a lot of movies I wish I saw before I got into. Man, I couldn't even see Tron until I got into high school. And I love Tron.
Yeah, Tron is good. I think the original Tron's better than the new Tron, even though I like the new Tron.
Wow, that's the first time I've heard that angle on it.
Visually, of course, it's not. Even though I'm sure it was groundbreaking at the time. Although I really appreciate visually the way that the first Tron was made in a lot of ways, with like the painted backgrounds and I actually think that stuff's really cool. Personally, we were talking about that when we just watched Land Before Time actually for our last pop culture classic, which is clearly a hand-drawn like flip animation movie, and I really like that animation style, to be honest. Like the new smooth animation is nice, obviously, but it was really cool going back and seeing that where like there were parts of that movie, especially having a high definition television, where I could actually tell where they were flipping through the page, like parts, or they were flipping through on like Littlefoot and stuff. I was like, you can actually see what's happening here a little bit.
I really, really love hand-drawn animation, and there's the only reason I appreciate the rotoscoped computer CGI stuff we have now is the efficiency with which you can use to get a comic from a manga to a show. It is so fast now compared to what it was before, and so cheap compared to what it was. You had to have teams and teams of experienced animators to do this stuff, and now it's like you have some of those, and then you have some computer guys, and you can get this, within a year, instead of this is going to be 5 years of Miyazaki's life or something to make this happen.
Yeah.
But that wavy wiggliness that feels more natural, chaotic, and of the real world is just, I haven't seen a successful duplication of that in any of the smoother stuff that we've had since.
No, I would be fine if a company went back and made a movie like they did before, honestly. Also, I just think those old kids movies were better than ones today.
It's interesting because like even the scary stuff was scarier because of that, like Animal Farm.
Dude, definitely. Juan hasn't seen it, but I told him, I was like, dude, watch All Dogs Go to Heaven. That movie's fucking scary in parts.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly adult for a kid's movie. Like, all of the scenarios are I mean, like having a best friend that turns on you and murders you so he can keep his profits on the bar. How is that a kid's movie?
Yeah, it's I mean, everything about that premise is dark,
Yeah,
and then the animation itself, like,
was dark too.
it was dark. It was chaotic in a way that made you feel unsteady watching it.
Yeah,
and that kind of, I don't know, that seems to like seep into my brain better than anything that I've seen that's CGI rotoscoped.
it definitely does. Like, I know that Toy Story was a really good movie.
Mhm.
I know for a fact that it was, but I have a hard time breaking it down in my head, like what all the parts of Toy Story. To me, all the Toy Stories I've seen are just mashed together, and it's kind of a cool story. But I could tell you, like, everything that happens in All Dogs Go to Heaven, everything that happens in Fern Gully, Fievel, An American Tail.
Yeah.
Like, these, I could, like, go through, and I haven't watched those movies in way longer, besides that More Time, which we just watched. I've seen Toy Story way more recently than those movies.
Yeah, what was the one with the rats? Or no, the bunnies that they just remade recently? Watership
Down. Yeah.
That was dark
That was
as
a
hell.
movie. Yeah, Watership Down is for kids, but not for kids.
And, nothing against the new one, but there's no way to have that same visceral quality that the original had.
Definitely not.
I'm even at a loss for words for how to describe it. Like, I'd have to look, scene by scene and try to find the thing in there that's weird. But
it's just, I just remember, like, the animation, like, when you can make a bunny look terrified,
yeah. Yeah. Well, they were selling it, like, the people drawing it were making a image that was based on the only thing that they had, which was human reference. They had people try to make those faces so they could look at them and see what facial muscles were giving you that impression. Because we're programmed to not only look at someone and see the expression on their face, but to react to it. If you see someone running down the street with abject terror on their face, running at full speed, it's unlikely that some part of you will not be like, what are they running from? Should I be afraid? Do I need to turn around? It's like humans are vulnerable to swarm theory as much as animals and bugs are. So we see these things, and because they were trying to recreate faithfully the impressions they got from this, because it was an artist doing it and not a computer. Well, and that's not fair. I mean, I know there are artists trying to replicate those things on the computer, and you can, using free programs like what is it called? I don't know, Blender or something like that. You can get faces and modify every little muscle in it, but unless you know, if you don't know what you're trying to get, you don't know what to ignore, and that's where the artistry comes in.
Yeah, can you imagine how talented those animators were too? That, like, not only could they all draw well, obviously, but they could draw in, like, I mean, like, it's like I've told you, like, I could, like, you're a much better artist than me, but I can draw somewhat. But I have, like, a style of my art that just kind of comes out while I'm drawing. No matter what, like, I can try to draw something I see, but it'll still be like, parts of it will still look like I did it stylistically. But these animators could just duplicate other people's styles too, and, like, instantly. Like, you could have like 50 animators all working on the same movie, and it looks like one guy did it all. Like, to me, that's like, must have been like, that's an incredibly talented individual having tons of those people work on films.
It's a different skill set, and it's something you can learn. So, all right, going into some, like, little art theory here. There are multiple components to it. There's not, at the ground level, there's the mechanical part of it. Is your coordination, is your neural connection to your fingers good enough to put down what you intend to put down? If you want to do a straight line, can you do a straight line? If you want to do a curve, will that work, or will it start wobbling? Will it, fall off? Will it, that's the first thing. If you can get that first part, just the control, it's like a baseball player swinging 1,000 times.
Yeah.
They build up the muscle memory, and that's what the first part of it is. Then the second part is making what you put on the page not just be what you want, but what you envision. Like, I may want a straight line, but am I trying to draw a transformer, or am I trying to draw blades of grass? Where do I want the straight line to be? So then there's that. And then there's the composition part. And then there's the color theory. And then there's the symbolism. Does this tell me anything on the surface level? Does it tell me anything beneath that still carries things to it? That still like carries an emotion or an idea. Like, if you show someone about to jump off a cliff, but their feet are skittering against it, it not only tells you the story that someone is maybe changing their mind at the last second, you also have to make the movement look realistic, as well as the stopping look realistic, as well as what is the rest of the story? Why did someone change their mind? Like that, and that all stems from the basic ability to even make a mark that you intend. And I'll tell you though, in high school and college, there's a lot of, I don't know how many art classes you took, and I think you're a good artist, but a lot of what I had to do was mimic something else.
Yeah.
And so that was a skill that I was building, and it for a while kind of crushed my style. It crushed the extremely energetic poses that I had, because now I was like, all right, so the shoulder can't really bend that far, the knee can't really go that angle. Like, now that I know anatomy better, I have to follow these rules. And, then you have to break past that. But it is definitely a different skill set, especially like for an autodidact, somebody that taught themselves, which a lot of artists start off that way. And then you get into a class, and then it like narrows your bandwidth.
I had like high school art classes, but that's about it.
And there's valuable stuff to learn, and there's value in having your focus narrowed, because like the light from a flashlight is one thing, but the light from a laser is totally different, and it's the same number of photons. It's just how it's used and how condensed it is. But if you focus too much on what you're taught and not on what you're trying to create, it's easy to kind of lose some of yourself, and then you have to get that back later.
Definitely. That is
I could go
on.
Do you
have at like arm's reach or close, do you have any of your artwork that you're working on or anything so that people can see? Just in case somebody wants to reach out to you for possible commission work.
Yeah, I've got some blank covers that are completed nearby. I'll bring them over for a quick showing. I've got some other stuff, but that's going to be harder to dig out at the moment.
I'm sure.
Give me one moment.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, just to fill the dead space. I currently have AC working on a commission for me. He's, I think he's a very talented individual, especially in the comic book realm. So if you guys are looking for someone to do blank commissions, or as far as the comic book blanks, or for me, he's even doing a bigger piece that's not a comic book blank, but he's going to show some of his artwork real quick, and then that's always a possibility if you want to figure out how to get to him. If you don't know, he's on Facebook, or you can reach out to myself or Juan or Tim or Gabe, because they're kind of on hiatus for a little bit. With
this is what I was able to find. Start with something that's completed. So we've got an A-Force cover with She-Hulk on it. She's got a show coming out, and made me think I should do some covers of her. So it's Copic markers, and I don't have my headphone in. Have you been able to hear any of this without my mic near my face?
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right. Yeah, so that's one, but that's Copic markers. That's one medium. Next one, this is a completed one. I have prints of this one. It's Gwenum. So Spider-Gwen with a Venom symbiote.
Nice.
So might be able to see that one there. That's an oldie but a goodie, and something that I'm in the middle of right now. I like watercolors, and I'm trying to do the What If Ultron with the different gems and the Vision android body underneath.
Sick,
Thanks. It's got a bit to go.
It has I would assume it's hard to get that metallic look, but it definitely has it going.
It's its own skill also. Yeah, but yeah, that's some of the stuff I've got going on right now. I have one more thing. Smash up on my iPad with Procreate, totally digital. It's Batmandalorian. Lost it. So he's got Batman armor, Darksaber, little rocket pack, and just random colors and stuff in the background. Yeah. But I'm fortunate that I have the luxury of only drawing stuff that I like. So
yeah,
I have even the commissions I take. I want to do certain things, and they tend to go along those lines. So your commission is going to be one of the things that I am having to learn more on, because if it were a picture of Optimus Prime, I know every nook and cranny on him.
Yeah.
I don't care how that sounds. But the Megazord, I'm not as used to it. So I'm working on improving my ability to get that angle. And I have the composition ready, and I have the background, but I'm not going to show you just yet.
That's fine. I'd rather wait to see it anyway.
It's actually, I won't tilt this. But that's something that I enjoy. And even though Power Rangers was kind of like, okay, so you're 10 years younger, it was a much bigger deal in your youth than where I was, because I was sort of past that point. So my experience with it is more familiarity, and the fact that I watched anything that had superheroes or animation, and the only thing that was ever so crap that I had to stop was Speed Racer. That show was boring.
Yeah. I actually, I think I saw 4 or 5 episodes of it, and I was like, "This is pretty bad."
They saved a lot of money animating that, because it was just headshots going back and forth, and then the monkey, and then you'd see the car, which is not moving, just stuff behind it. When you figure out how the sausage is made on those, it's really kind of disappointing. But I also know that for a lot of people, that was all they had, and they had an attachment to it.
Yeah.
Like Tom and Jerry doesn't really carry the same interest for me these days, but it's always in here.
Yeah, and Power Rangers is a weird one for me, because I really did obviously when I was that show came out at a time when I was a kid where it was very good to me. But as I've grown older, it's not so much the show anymore. It's that just introduced me to the giant mech / giant monster or monster in general, and kung fu style of things. So now it holds that kind of nostalgia to me. Although some of the newer comics are very good. They're a lot more adult driven than the old show is. And from my understanding, the new show that they're working on is going to be very adult based as well. So
the people that love these things grew up and can now make them. Yeah. So they're like, this is the story I want now, while still enjoying that. If I had never seen Ultraman, I wouldn't have watched Power Rangers. But that idea of kaiju and giant mechs fighting, what's not to like?
Exactly, and it led me into things that are obviously, I think, a little more elevated, like Gundam, and into the Godzilla, and into some other style stuff that's has a deeper history, a little bit more substance. But I think if you did like Power Rangers, you should look into where it's at right now, because I think it is in a good spot. What's cool about from my understanding, the adult show that's coming out, whether they're admitting it or not, I think it has to be influenced by the YouTube channel, where some just regular fans made a Power Rangers TV show called Unworthy, where it's the first Power Ranger deciding that the other Rangers are unworthy of being Power Rangers and going from universe to universe, eliminating them. And it's dark and it's well done, especially for just guys just doing something. Like, it's legitimately well done.
I'll need you to send me that link. I'm going to check that out.
For sure. I mean, like, you can, the first episode's like, there's a couple little things, like some of the CGs are like a little but I'm like, man, those are like, they got like the real costumes for like every Power Ranger set. It's like, you think like Power Rangers Turbo, like they got that. They got all the different ones, the different helmets, the different suits. The putties they're fighting look like putties. I'm like, this is kind of crazy.
People can now buy those costumes with just like money you'd spend on going to the movies or getting a nice dinner or some beer that evening, like $100, and you can have a decent Power Rangers costume. Not like before when you had to hand make that or import it from Japan. Yeah,
it's definitely, that market's grown quite a bit. Even like the exact replica helmets are like, I think they're like $200, something like that, which is not that bad at all. That's essentially a motorcycle helmet. A nice motorcycle helmet's going to cost you a lot more money. Probably save your life more easily too.
Yeah.
Don't think you could probably wear a Power Rangers helmet to ride a bike.
In 2 weeks, or I should say in 2 weekends, at the All Seas Fan Expo, they're going to have the yellow and black Rangers from Zeo. So not the original show, but the later one. So I'm actually I got some blank covers at Hall of Justice Comics.
Nice.
For Power Ranger stuff. So I'm going to work on a few of those and see if maybe I can get them signed and get them slabbed.
Cool. Yeah, unfortunately, the original Yellow Ranger is no more. I think she's deceased.
Was it illness or suicide or some
I can't remember. I think it was something more tragic than an illness, but I can't remember exactly. And I've heard even like the Blue Ranger had some issues with like, I believe he's homosexual and had some issues with like some discrimination and stuff. So I guess that's why you don't see him as much on the circuit either. But
that's disappointing.
Yeah, it is to think about,
deal
like,
with that.
Yeah, I was talking to Gabe because it's like we live in like such a weird time with that state of things, because it's like when I was a kid, it obviously wasn't. I think it's better today that like discrimination racially or sexuality is at a good point today where we're at least like discussing the issue.
Yeah.
I feel like today we take it, sometimes it's going farther in a bad way than it did when I was a kid. But it's just like it's in a weird spot right now. But I think it's good that it's like something that's in your face at least, because people need to know, like, it is a thing that as human beings we've not been the greatest at doing in our history, treating people like humans when they disagree with us in certain areas.
Man, like if
has nothing to do with their choices.
If you lived in a tribe, it was just you and your family, and you'd had like an inbred family for however many generations, let's say 4,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago.
Yes.
And you were just kind of like no civilization, just your family that you grew up with and that you hunted with or whatever. There would still be people in that family you would have conflict with.
Yeah.
And as soon as we expand that, we keep finding reasons to be jerks to people.
Yeah, it's never really made much sense to me. Like, I mean, I'm one of the people that I guess like you would call hypocritical, because like on the comedy sphere, I still think like racial jokes and stuff are funny. But in the actual sphere, it's like I never have anywhere in my mind have I thought that somebody is like a lesser person than me because of like a racial issue or a global issue or like a sexuality issue.
No.
I will say I don't understand some of like the gender stuff out there today, but I don't have to understand it either. Like, if you're in my, the way that I look at it is, when I first meet you, I might use an improper pronoun based on how you appear. But if you address me, you want me to use a different one, I don't care what it is. If that's what you want to be addressed as, that's what I'll address you as.
Shit, man, no one calls me my real name. People call me AC. That's what I told people to call me, and they do me the courtesy of handling that without any difficulty, without any headaches.
Even though that wasn't your real name.
Yeah, I mean, if people can do it for me, I can certainly do it for others.
I've even heard the scientific point of view, which I'll say, like, I'm not sure is incorrect. I've heard people say that, like, transgenderism and things like homosexuality, they think are actually like forms of dysmorphia, which can potentially be treated by hormonal therapy. And I was like, maybe they can be. But as of right now, that person still feels like a woman or a man, and that's how they want to be treated. So you don't got the pill for it at this moment. So,
well, and it's not something that affects me right now. If they had an issue that made them homicidal, get the fucking pill. But when somebody decides to call themselves or how they want to live their life or who they want as their partner, like, if everyone involved is cool, do it. You know, it's it's when that's not the stuff that bothers me about people. When people act like, I don't know, like you were saying, when people think someone else is less than them. And I don't think anyone actually feels that way. I think they want to feel that way because they feel crap about themselves and they want to lift themselves
level,
up.
You're probably pretty right. Or somehow, in some way, it benefits them to put those people in
that's a better way of putting it. Yeah.
Like in slavery and stuff like that, where it's like, I think if you could have a rational conversation with somebody and in some way owning that slave didn't benefit them, they could easily see that person as a human being. But to look at them like a piece of farm equipment, benefited them. So is what it is.
I mean, that's the highest, most distilled form of capitalism right there. You get complete efficiency out of someone and you give them only the bare minimum to keep them alive. That if companies could do that, still they would.
Oh, absolutely. I think to a degree they still do. Even though somebody could look at my income and say that you're like a middle class individual, right? To the company I work for, the amount of money they're paying me is nothing. It's the largest meat distribution company on the planet. And the computer I work at is from like 1998. Like, they are, it's obviously not as bad as slavery. But I mean, like, the minimum amount that they're allowed to do to show me that I'm a human being is the amount that they are doing. That standard has risen, luckily, since the days of slavery.
But yeah, I mean, that is that hyper efficiency that capitalism eventually gets to. And I'm not saying like, oh, well, capitalism's all bad. Like, any system can work for a while. Yeah. Any system can, if everybody's in on communism, you can make it work for a while. If everyone's in on capitalism, you can make it work for a while. But eventually the flaws come through and you have to adjust. And we get so bad at being willing to be nimble with our way of looking at things and deciding, hey, just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean we can't change it now because this is what's needed. I mean, it's the same with politics. It's the same with science. You learn something new, incorporate it into your thinking, and allow that to guide you. We all believed things at some point in our life that were wrong. We've all had some idea change from having more information added. So we should be open to that because that's the path to success for a civilization.
Not only should we be open to that, I think we got to be... The one thing I don't like about where our society is right now is I think that we have to turn off, not from a learning perspective, but from a feelings perspective. And I wouldn't say like the past as in yesterday, but the past as in like, 80 to 100 years and back. It's like, like I'll take like the slavery issue. It's like it's obviously a horrific thing that happened, but nobody can make it right today. So to continue holding it over people is not going to help us progress, farther as like a society.
So yeah, I'll let you finish, and then I got something.
It's like a weird thought. I know it sounds bad. Like I don't mean it bad. Like, but I just know I see it a lot in like media and certain individuals I talk to and certain people that are, certain perspectives on like YouTube channels or whatever, where it's just like white people don't understand. I was like, I don't think that's true. like that white person was never a slave owner. Their parents were never a slave owner. If mostly white people don't think that it's okay that your ancestors were slaves or anything like that. So I'm not saying that they don't have some kind of enhanced privilege in today's society. Obviously, that's not true as well. But I think we have to get to a point where it's like we just decide to work together. I mean, I don't know that you can have a clean slate, but almost a clean slate-ish, and be like, we're just going to treat people like humans and move forward together. I don't think that's necessarily possible for everyone to do, but I just feel like the way that we look at it now, or the way that a lot of society looks at it now, where it's like, even from like TV shows and things like Black History Month and stuff like that, like Morgan Freeman had a really good like news clip a long time ago where he's talking about how he thinks Black History Month is just like retarded. He's like American history is Black history, and Black history is world history, and it's the same as your history. Like, it's just history. It's like, why don't you stop calling me a black man and I'll stop calling you a white man? You can just call me Morgan and I'll just call you that. And I'm like, ideally, I think like that's where we would have to be to get rid of like these issues long term, but I don't know how you get there necessarily. But
well, part of it is the law of nature. I mean, there's a price to be paid when you enslave a group of people based on a cosmetic difference, and you treat other people poorly for centuries because of a cosmetic difference, and say, you are in this group and we consider this group less than us, and we're going to punish you for that, and we're going to take advantage of you for that. And now that your group is big enough to fight back, and your group, despite all the things we did to you and to your chances at gaining wealth and accumulating land and getting skills and knowledge and having access to the same benefits everyone else has, despite the fact that one group looked at these other little groups, bullied them, basically shat on them, demonized them, punished them, and now those groups are big enough and prominent enough that they're not as easy to bully and push around.
Oh, definitely.
And so the group that started this is like, hey, so now that's in the past. Can we have peace now? Because, we see you as equals at this point, now that you have enough influence to do something to us about it. And now that you have enough justified rage, maybe not at, me personally, maybe I never owned a slave. Maybe no one in my family ever did, but I'm benefiting from a system that kept you down, that kept your knowledge cut off, that kept your education inferior, that put you in places where we have mercury or lead in the pipes, and we redlined you, preventing you from living in better parts of town. And we stomped on you all this time. And now that you can fight back, we're going to say, hey, we're cool now, right? Because, we respect you.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to like take your words and twist them. It's more an attitude I see from other people that are like, well, I didn't own a slave. Why should I be punished? And it's like, well, they didn't choose to be slaves. Why did they have to be punished? But why are there people alive right now whose grandma, whose granddad was a slave? Those things were still there. Why are there people alive right now that their homes were torched, that their relatives were torched?
My mom, essentially was, my mom was a child, was what you call a migrant worker, where she worked for a group of farmers, and they paid them exactly enough money to pay for the amount of food they were given and the shelters they were staying in. So I've said that before, and other people have been like, "That's not slavery," and I was like, "It's absolutely slavery." Like if you work all day for 5 cents and you owe the farmer 6 cents at the end of the day, that's slavery. And my mom grew up in that situation too. I totally see what you're saying. Like I know it's not a thing that it can be just like swept under the rug. I just don't know how we ever move forward from it, if it makes sense.
I think we will, but I think that there has to be, I mean, for every action in nature, there's equal and opposite reaction. And I think that even if it's diminished with time and diminished with restraint, there still is going to be a lot of bad blood. There's still a lot of anger. There's still, and it's not like those things stopped. It's not like, slavery in technicality stopped, but, most people in prisons are minorities, and there are states where they can be forced to work for nothing. That slavery is legal if you're in prison. Like we still have not gotten let go of that.
I definitely think all of those things also have to get to a point where they're non-existent for us to move on. It's not just feelings. Like the system has to get to a point to where it's equivalent as well. Like I completely understand that. That's the point to me that is like the hardest thing to be like, how do you get past all that? Because there's so many people making, so many wheelbarrows full of money based on that system that even if you could show it to them about how it's unfair, they're probably not gonna agree with you.
No, well, they have no incentive to, because as long as they can get away with turning someone into a commodity until they're stopped, they won't. And we know that they won't, because we had to make it illegal to own slaves. We had to make it illegal to have kids working in factories. Not because we were just a highly evolved society that was like, these things are wrong. We should just make sure it's codified and we never do this. We stopped that because it got so bad that enough kids died and enough people died that there was an uproar. Only societal pressure changed that. And that's the only thing. True. That's the only thing that changes some of these problems. Because people are not, if people could say, all right, we would like all the minorities, AC, we'd like you to, all of you guys to forgive everything and start with a clean slate, and we will put everyone on an equal footing starting now. Your kids will be going to the same schools. You will be able to live in the same parts of town. You will get paid the same money. You will get hired just as often. You will be policed at the same rate and with the same level of suspicion as everyone else, and in every way treated the same starting right now. I could find in myself the ability to let go and see that through, but that will never happen.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't know how you get there, is what I was saying.
Yep. We only pain gets us there. Only when people have that societal pressure, only when they lose enough money because there are enough minorities, which are not going to be minorities, for long enough, or for long enough for some people, but we're going to be, Latinos are one of the fastest growing populations, and there's the theory of the browning of the world. As people mix and marry, that you're likelier to get the genes that protect you from the sun as a trait that carries on. These cosmetic issues are going to become less apparent, and people will find something else to be dicks about. So we have to fix the fundamental problem in humans before to really get past this.
It goes back to that same issue where I was having a conversation with a girl at work, and it's that weird conversation where I was like, I should be able to wear whatever I want. And I was like, you absolutely should be. And in my mind, you can. But there still are weird dicks out in society that may take that as an invitation to do something else. And I wish those people didn't exist, but they do. And it's not your fault at all, but it is a real consequence of living in today's society until somehow we grow into the society where that's not a problem or that's not an issue. for all the reasons you said and other reasons. I don't know that that's possible, but hopefully in our distant future it is, as human beings.
You could go with the Watchmen solution to that. Adrian Veidt turning the world on the squids and creating a common enemy that was so different from humanity that people could not help but see the remainder of what was left as their brothers and sisters. But also, we kind of had something like that in the real world. We had 9/11, and people were all kumbaya and wearing flag pins and talking about how much they love their country. And within a couple of years, they were acting like dicks to each other again. I mean, not even that long in many cases.
Yeah.
So it's not even that what seems like the big hammer to bring the nail in might work. We already know that it's not a long-term solution. We have to... Yeah. Oh, man. All right, so I know I've been talking for a bit here, but there's this book I read a long time ago. It's called The Book of the Dragon Tooth, and it's out of print. It's hard to find. I bought it because the art was interesting, but it's a story about this guy who finds the legends of this dagger. It's called the Dragon Tooth, and it's got this red gem at the pommel of it, and whoever gets this dragon tooth can decide the fate of the world. So he goes on this quest. He decides to go find it. He decides that he's had some tragedy in his life. He doesn't want that to happen to anyone else. When he finds this, he's going to fix the world. He's going to make everyone behave. He's going to make everyone, even if they don't love each other, at least tolerate each other and not attack each other. He finally gets there. He finds it.
That book?
Motherfucker, that's it. Yep. It's not that long. You should get it, or I'll lend you mine. I'm going to, little spoiler here, but he finds it, and the red gem at the base is actually a piece of the apple, very metaphorical, from the tree of knowledge, the apple that Adam and Eve ate. And so there's a guardian. There's an immortal being that's guarding the dagger. And he goes up and he's like, "Are you going to stop me from doing this? Are you going to stop me from saving the world?" And the guy's like, "No, I'm just here until somebody takes my place." And the guy's like, "Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to fix everything." And so he takes the dagger and he's looking at it and he's considering his options. And the guy says, the guardian tells him, "Look, you can make everyone be better to each other, to themselves. You can, in one word, change the world and fix it from your perspective. But in doing so, you eliminate the free will that every human has, that everyone was given. You enslave them." And the guy's like, "Well, then what am I supposed to do? Just leave it here?" And he says, "Well, it's here because eventually humanity will choose this for themselves. But humanity has to get to the bitter core of the apple and taste the worm and taste the rotten center. And everyone has to feel it together. And at that point, they can choose themselves to be better for each other. And that's why every life has misery and pain and discomfort, even the best ones. Because we're supposed to take that and use that to be better to each other." So the guy decides to leave it and let humanity live out its destiny and hopefully eventually get to that point where we've caused each other enough suffering that we finally go, "All right, enough. We can stop now."
Yeah.
And
Cool.
How we get there, your question, I don't have an answer, man. I wish I did.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think anybody does. It's not one of those ones I like. I think it's going to just be time, and I do think technology will play a part in it as well. And I know time does heal, because whereas, to the African-American community, slavery is really not actually that long ago. But you have other atrocities, I would say, of close caliber that happened quite a long time ago that our world has moved on from. um, to a much higher degree than they've moved on from that one. But I do think that takes a couple hundred years of not being persecuted, of not being treated like, garbage or being owned. But I mean, I don't think like most of the Asian countries hate Mongolians anymore. I'm pretty sure. Maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong.
We'll have to ask somebody. You represent all the people of your part of the world. Give me an answer to this.
What do you think about Mongolians?
Yeah, I mean,
Germans I think, have made quite a big comeback pretty quickly.
but you notice the difference with Germans and like people who've committed other atrocities in the world. They were punished. They accepted the punishment the second time. The first time they did not. That's why we had the Second World War. But they accepted it the second time.
Got uppity twice.
Yeah. But after the second time, there was a conscious effort made to get away from that, to take the people that were in power that led to that out and reject that way of thinking. And that's not to say, I mean, in the last 5-6 years, there's been a rise in violence from neo-Nazis again, which they thought they'd stomped out, but at least it's illegal. So there is recourse other than tolerating it until it gets, so completely out of hand, which a little bit of restraint can allow that to get far out of hand before it gets physically out of hand.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that part of it is tribalism is like a part of human nature, I believe, to a degree. And taken to its ugliest places, you get to those places very fast, I think. At least in certain groups of individuals.
So I've heard that a really great line, and it's that our flaws are just misapplied virtues.
Yeah.
So whereas like finding connection with others and finding a desire to see people as your tribe, if you could expand that to all of life, to all living beings on the planet, that would be virtuous and beneficial. When you shrink that down and it's just a group that you control or a part of or feel connected to at the exclusion of others, then we get this crap. Just like, it's beneficial to like hoard stuff like a squirrel saves for winter because sometimes you can't hunt and plant. But that goes too far and you just become a crazy dude with a bunch of magazines in his basement and the unwillingness to let anything go. We happy mediums again, like the virtue is there and misapplied becomes a gigantic pain in the ass.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like we're all very capable of doing it. I don't remember who said it to me, or like I remember like I know my grandma, or like I don't remember. It was a long time. I was a little kid, but I remember them telling me that like when you're anytime like you come up with an excuse to treat someone poorly at all, like that, that person's homeless because they don't work hard enough or whatever like that, that's when you know that you're in the wrong, not them. Like the moment you have a reason to look at them as anything different than yourself, then like you're at fault, not that person at that moment. I don't remember exactly how they said it, but it was something to that degree. I think it might have been my grandma or my grandpa when I was like very little.
Pretty wise.
But that's kind of how I've always tried to view it. I always try to look for like the or like not dystopian, the possibility of like what if, but like you can't really get there, like you said, or like at least probably not in our lifetime. But yeah, the second I think you look down on somebody or like you, not from a religious standpoint, because people have their own views on that, but the moment when you can't like forgive something in somebody else to look past it, I think you're just not being realistic with yourself. Like you could just as easily be in any of those situations as anyone else is. Like you said, you don't drink. I don't drink either, really, very much. When I do drink, I tend to get drunk. And it's like once every like 6 months or once a year. But I don't drink consistently or do drugs at all, because my real dad had a real issue with that, and it caused him to be a violent individual and do a lot of things. And yeah, sure, for a while when I was a kid, I hated him for that. But as I grew up, I was like, man, if I got addicted to drugs and alcohol, I could just as easily be that person that he was. You know what I mean? So it's not, he took a few wrong turns, and before you know it, you're not in control of your own life anymore. So, I mean, I know people say that's a cop out, but I don't think it is. Like, I've worked with enough alcoholics and drug addicts, and they don't want to be the person they are half the time. You know what I mean?
Genetics are a big factor, and unfortunately, like, our society encourages us to try the things that we might just find out are extremely bad for us. It's like if every restaurant had peanuts, and some of you are gonna find out you've got a peanut allergy the hard way, but we don't put EpiPens out for everybody, and that's what it is with alcohol, which we have, alcohol, nicotine, even caffeine, like things that are ubiquitous, things that are addictive, things that we know are addictive, and that we know are extremely addictive to certain genetics. And why is it that some people can go and have a beer every now and then and not ruin their life, and other people can't? It's not just a moral failing. It's not just a personal flaw. One person drinks it and goes, "Oh, that was interesting." Another person drinks it and is like, "I need more. My body tells me I need more." And that's not a conscious choice. Now, it's conscious when you see things falling apart and you got to do something about it, but it's a lot harder when you're already falling.
Yeah, people don't realize, like, that is not how you see your everyday life. Like, I mean, in a very less, I would say, serious way. Well, it could be serious, but I'm a chunky individual. I'm addicted to cheeseburgers. But
cheeseburgers are
if
good.
I eat a cheeseburger, I'm not at that moment going like, "Oh man, I should stop doing this because it'll hurt me." I might think that after I eat a cheeseburger, but I already ate the cheeseburger. Or like when I go to the doctor's like, which I have been, which is good because I'm on a kick right now. But it's like I was like, what can I do about this? Like, I've had constant knee issues because I've torn my ACL and MCL like twice. So
takes.
And one of those reasons had nothing to do with being a big guy. I actually was in pretty good shape and I messed it up playing sports related. And the other time I was walking down the street and literally twisted my knee in a weird way. And
that sucks.
But when you go to the doctor and you're like, "My knee hurts," and he's like, "Well, you should probably lose some weight." And I was like, "I agree with you, and I'm working on that, but it still hurts right now." So, think there's anything we can do about that?
Oh man, okay. So yeah, let's go along with this a little further. So, people who get type 2 diabetes often have hypoglycemia as a precursor to it. So like your insulin, your sugar is low normally. And so when you take in sugar, you feel either normal or good, but better than you were. There's an improvement in your current state. You're like, this is what I need. Give me another candy bar. Give me another Reese's. And I know I have a problem with Reese's. But that precursor leads to type 2 diabetes because you're now trying to feel normal by putting something into your body that you don't have the ability to process in those amounts. Yeah. And so when that goes on for long enough, my dad, he got type 2 diabetes. And it was just, he didn't eat terribly, but mom would make us good food, but dad would have like some Little Debbie's in the cupboard and, go and have a nutty bar or whatever. And that was just like after dinner, that was what he'd have. And we grew up the same way. I would go and wrestle and watch my diet and stay underweight. And then I'd get home and I'd be like, man, I just need a Reese's. And I'd get that and I'd feel great. Well, dad got type 2 diabetes and then mom put him on a diet that he was not the biggest fan of. But after a couple of years, she got his numbers down and he got rid of it. But it took a ton of willpower. It took a ton of like, even the two of them bumping heads trying to like make this work. Cause like it's an addiction. It's not only that you're psychologically addicted to it because you feel better, you're physiologically addicted to it because you feel better. So you have two things to overcome. And he never really overcame it. He just did what he had to do to get through. The willpower was enough, you know, with mom's help to get through that. And also, you got to figure out what works for you. Some people are like, oh, I can quit cigarettes cold turkey. Other people are like, I need to have one every now and then so I don't feel that buildup of pressure of need so much without like tamping it down a little. And you got to figure out what kind of person you are. We all do, to kind of unlock what's the thing that works for me to stop doing something that makes life harder for me. So for me, I don't know. I just work out enough that I can eat like crap, and then I try to eat something like actively healthy. So I don't like broccoli or kale. Throw them in with everything. I have some broccoli or kale. You know, the taste bothers me unless I drench it in something which there are ways to do it that's not too unhealthy. Lemon juice, vinegar, stuff like that. But we have to find like, oh man, I think I had an epiphany here. Yeah, we have to find our own key to our own addictions. And some of our addictions are conflict, because the ability to defend yourself, to fight off an animal or another human being or someone that's trying to compete for your resources, it's a benefit to be able to do that. It's a benefit to have fear so that you can run fast enough, and it's a benefit to have anger to override that if you have to fight. And all of these things, like, they go in the toolbox. Yeah. But we just get we're lazy. Also, water rolls downhill. You know, humans follow the law of nature.
I've recently figured out that that's my actual addiction. It's not even laziness. It's convenience. Because I don't have the same thing that you have with, like, I like food. I don't care what it is. Like, people are like, I don't like salads. I was like, I love salads. Like, I like broccoli. I love broccoli. Like, to me, my thing is, I developed a long... Well, we didn't have food when I was a kid because we were, like, really poor. You know what I mean? Like, or access to a lot of food. But I developed the habit of eating, like, once a day, which is not good for you, really. I've heard about the intermittent fasting. If I wasn't doing it the right way, I would just not eat all day and then eat crap, like, or just eat a large amount of things one time and then go right to bed. And then that's not good for you. And then because I come from a line of people that are like, I've always heard the stipulation that Mexicans are lazy, but I don't know any lazy Mexicans. I don't know that that's true. But I come from like a very hardworking group of people. So I've always worked like 12, 15-hour days to where it's like, it's just easier to go to McDonald's on the way home than it is to spend an hour cooking. But I've started to break that cycle the last 6 months or so, or starting to cook and eat better meals. And I definitely notice a difference. I feel better losing weight, stuff like that. So it's definitely the right way to go about things. But for the longest time, I just didn't even acknowledge really anything. You know, it's just like, it's just easier. I worked all day, go home, throw this thing in the microwave that's not good for you, or go to this burger spot because it takes 5 minutes as opposed to 45 minutes.
Yeah. And you got to build that skill up to be able to make stuff that you like. That's that's time consuming, that's resource intensive, or can be. All those things work
eating
against
healthy
the convenience.
Is more expensive than eating crappy. Which people say it's not, but I don't know where these people live.
Unless they're farming it themselves.
When I buy a bunch of vegetables and like good food, it's way more expensive than
dude.
Than buying like Totino's pizzas and ramen noodles.
You don't get 5 for $5 on smoked salmon. You know, that's your Wendy's menu.
Yeah, definitely not. Well, AC, I was going to talk about Action Comics, but I think that'll be our next episode because we're like 2 hours in. I think
Understood.
if you're in on the ride of the AC and I talking out, this one went long, but that's just because I just enjoy having conversations with you. So
Same
hopefully
here,
you
bro.
guys are. Thanks, I appreciate that. Hopefully you guys are up for that. I might try to make it a little more structured, but we're probably just going to be bullshitting most of the time. So, hope you guys enjoyed it. If you like anything thinking outside the long box, you can just Google us, and we got all kinds of stuff. AC, how can they find you if they maybe want to reach out to you for artistic commissions, or if they just want to say hi? Yeah. You've been on
On
the podcast quite a few times.
That's true. And you guys always let me plug. On Facebook, if you go looking for artwork by AC, or https www.facebook.com ac.loves.art would probably be the direct path to it. Also on Instagram, argentum_eternum, ARGENTUM_AETERNUM. And I try to put new art on there pretty frequently, so it's always something to look at if you're bored.
Yeah, I encourage you guys to do that. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you again in 2 weeks.